Buenas, ¿qué tal? Mi nombre es Daniel Varellos y bienvenido.
Welcome to this talk called Mastering the Art of Modularization with GeneXus 18. What a name. To start with, I would like to share with you a life experience. About 2 months ago, I went to visit a friend, and he's got a small construction company. He was standing opposite a warehouse that looks somewhat like this. At the beginning, I got closer, and without looking at me, he said, I can't deal with this any longer. And I was tempted to say, well, look, about tools and construction, I can't really help you. But then I looked again at the storeroom, and I said, this reminds me of something I know. I've already faced things like this. It reminds me of many KBs I've worked in. And so thinking about GeneXus, what is it that we want to avoid? We want to avoid that our KB resembles that storeroom. And that's why I got closer and I said, look here, I can help you because I can tell you about some problems that I think you have. Most certainly, you can't find the tools you know you have there in that storeroom. I'm sure that when you have to go to a construction site, you take along very big bags with tools that you don't need for that work. And so your work becomes very complex because the tools are in different bags and you can't travel with all of them at the same time. And so he looked at me in surprise and he said, have you got a camera? Are you spying on me? And I said, no, because when we face similar KBs, we face similar problems. I'd like to propose then that we see some of the characteristics that GeneXus has to make our life easier. We don't want our KBs to resemble that storeroom. And so what we want is that they don't grow in an out of control, because we've all started with a small database with a very specific goal, and then it started growing, and it became a monster of multi-purpose monster with many tentacles. And so to control all this, I propose to adopt the concept of modularization in the development process in our development team. To do that, I would like to discuss 4 levels where we can place a development team. In the first place is the one that doesn't even think about the concept of modules. That person would make their developments without thinking about modules. Most certainly, the KBs of these teams are very similar to my friend's storeroom. But I think that the large majority of the people here don't belong to this category, because it's quite simple for us to think, for these IT people, to think in modules, in a modular manner. So the next level I propose is development teams that think about their solutions with having a module in mind. When I talk about modules, I refer to components with a very specific goal that may get together, mix them up, and then use them when necessary. So it would roughly something like this: organize my friend's storeroom in this way. There's a clear change. I want to believe that we feel happier just by looking at it. It's a clear change because it's far easier to look for a tool. And if I have to do it, it's in a very much restricted place. The organization of all this allows me to do so. I was thinking about development teams. Many teams end up organizing this group of tools in different closets, in different cupboards, different KBs. This is what Mauro has just told us. They have different KBs, and that takes us to face certain problems, certain shortfalls. In principle, multiple KBs is on the other side of the use of codes. It's as if those cupboards, my friend's cupboards, were under key, and if I want to have access to the tools that are somewhere else, I can't do it, and I have to have a double tool. So unlike my friend, is that GeneXus gives us some tools to solve this problem. And so here I'd like to introduce the concept of packages and repositories. Armin talked about this as well as Mauro, but this concept allows us to solve this problem because, as we said, we have already thought our KBs in a modular manner. We have a KB, for instance, with a security module, another KB with external communication, and another KB with the business core of our the core business. So this one has two modules, one to be connected with the government of Uruguay and the other one with the government of Brazil. So what we need is a mechanism whereby we can share these modules among various KBs that are going to make use of these modules. And perhaps we have a common ground to leave these packages, these modules. And so we're going to create a common repository where the KBs with implementation of the module can send to that repository those modules, that is, those modules that are packaged. Very well. Now, to have a repository in GeneXus is very easy. You have to go to knowledge manage reference, and with the button A in the service section, we can have a common repository. Now, these repositories can be of two types. They could be directories or Nexus, as Armin mentioned in his talk. Now, if they are directories, then we're going to be asked for a name and a location where to create that directory. The location must be accessible from the entire development team and different KBs that want to make use of it. Now, in the case of Nexus type, it's going to ask for a user and a password to authenticate it. In case it's a Nexus in Azure, it could also be an API. So once we press OK, that's going to be added. Our repository is going to be ready to be used. And we're going to have in that common ground so that the KBs that have the implementation of modules can send them. As Mauro said, this is simply, we are standing on the module that has the implementation, and this is the module Uruguay Go. We click on the right button, backup, and we have this dialog window. it is asking for extra information, which is optional. It could be the description, author, if there is any URL. And then we can select the environment for which we want to package it. Now, our KB may have configured an environment already. It could be Java or .NET. And we can choose which one we want to compile this code for. Then we choose the repository to be published, and in this case, we would have to choose the one we've just created. And in the dependencies section, GeneXus fills in automatically based on the reference in the KB with the dependencies having this module. For instance, in this case, in implementing module EuroY GOV, we would use this module that GeneXus distributes, and automatically GeneXus knows that this module has a dependency on another one and fills in the minimum version with the version used. If I've used that version of the module for implementation, then GeneXus automatically will fill it in. If I knew that my module also works with a lower version of the module, I could go up there and change it. Now, in this other version, it's possible. I don't, maximum version, I leave it as such. But if I know that GeneXus WXD in version 0.4.0 that introduces changes and it's a break in change there, the change isn't compatible, I can limit the version so that it's never going to be solved using a higher version. Because as from GeneXus 18, these dependencies are solved automatically. So to do so, we are based on two pillars. One is the policies of NIDE for the resolution of dependency, and the use of semantic versioning 2.0 for all our packages. I don't want to go into details as to how this dependency resolution works, but basically there are 4 pillars, and we try to move to the version that is closer to the one specified, having the possibility to say what I want a version to be solved with the opposite mechanism, to use floating versions. I may want that direct dependencies always wins vis-a-vis the transitive ones, and this gives you the security that if you want a dependency of on a specific module, you can mention that. And causing dependency says that when I have a dependency tree that mentions more than one version of one package, we will use one that contemplates both, if possible. If not, we will deploy error. And semantic versioning 2.0 has clear rules to compare versions. That's the basic thing it does. A number of semantic versioning version has 3 parts, and one is optional, the labels. And the labels is not part of the version. It's information that may be useful to people using the package, but is not part of the version. The major minor patch is the number that we need to change when we introduce breaking changes in the interface of our package, and it's no longer compatible. The minor is the number that we will increase if we make changes to the interface, but it allows to function normally. We add methods, but we do not remove methods from the interface. And the patch are the changes that do not alter the interface. When you press publish, the code is compiled, the associated metadata is created, and this is published in a common repository that we chose. At present, we are in the following situation. We have a common repository that has one module published, Uruguay Gov, and in a specific KB that was created with GeneXus 18, and by default it has the GeneXus module, we are going to develop the code we need for our specific customer. But as our solution also has to connect with the Uruguayan government, we are going to use the module that we have already programmed. So we will use it in our specific code. So how do we do this with GeneXus? It's very easy. I need a video here.
Parece que no. Básicamente vamos al nombre.
Well, we go to the manage module reference, we go to the repository we created, we select a module, we tell install, and this then GeneXus will solve the dependencies of the module, will install, and all the necessary modules have been added so that it works. What happened here? Well, I'll go back. What happened here is the following. When I installed the Uruguay Gov module, GeneXus automatically solved the dependencies it had. Maybe you remember when we packaged the module Uruguay Gov, it was dependent on GeneXus JBT. It was specified in the package, but we did not know that the GeneXus WT module also depended on module security API. So GeneXus goes through all the dependencies and does the necessary installations to be able to install the Uruguay Gov module. So it installed what it needed first, and finally Uruguay Gov. And this was done automatically without our knowing that we needed the security API Commons module. In the Explorer, we can see the modules that have been installed and that were referenced, as Armi mentioned when he talked about referenced modules. So we are now in a situation that is very different from the starting point. We are in a situation that allows us to very easily compose solutions. So what else could we add to make our development process step to a higher level? Maybe we could automatize all these things so that this is transparent for the different types of development. So I propose integrating this to a process of continuous integration and continuous delivery. We will use GeneXus servers with some bots, tools like Jenkins, Azure bots. Imagine the following scenario. The government of Uruguay changes one of the services for interaction, and the team in charge of the Uruguay Gov module makes the changes, adjusts the communication, and does a commit.
commit. This triggers and this will trigger the packaging of a new version of the module Uruguay.gov and will publish the new version in the common repository. In turn, all the KBs that use that module will be updated. So in the next assemble of that KB, the change is updated, and the version is updated, and the change is distributed. All of that happens in a very transparent manner, with no effort at all on the part of people who use the modules. The only person aware of the change is a team developing the Uruguay.gov module. But before I say thank you, I believe that it is evident that using this methodology facilitates teamwork. It allows us to work in parallel in a very easy way. But I would like to highlight that when we use packaged modules, we also reduce the number and quantity of objects that at the time of compiling and specifying, because the objects were compiled when we package the module and not when I compile my specific KB. So the number of objects is much less. And this translates into a better speed of assembling the whole thing, and the development experience is much better. So I have nothing else to share with you. So I invite you to test these characteristics that we have in GeneXus. If you feel that there is one case that has not been contemplated, please come to us and we will be happy to help. I hope to meet you again. Thank you.